And now, it's time for another Dice Tower review with Tom Vasel.
Hey everybody, I'm Tom Vasel. A couple weeks ago, I reviewed the new Raiders of Scythia from Garfo Games, and I said in it that it was sort of an upgraded version of Raiders of the North Sea. Well, what I like to do in this particular video is do a little bit of comparing and contrasting. I'm not going to do every minor difference between the two, but they are different. And so Raiders of the North Sea came out first, has at least two expansions for it, two involved expansions, which I will play with. And in fact, I said that I like the game, but I like it much better with the expansions. And Raiders of Scythia just came out, so there's no expansion yet for it. But I'm going to be comparing mostly the base games, but there is a little bit more, and I'll talk about it at the end. But let's take a look at a little bit the boxes themselves and what's inside them. All right, so here we go. Raiders of Scythia and Raiders of the North Sea. They have a very different look to them. The boxes are pretty much the same size. They're designed by the same person, Shem Phillips. So really the box isn't going to tell us anything. Let's look inside. The boards look really different. Now, there's no question that Raiders of the North Sea, despite its very fighting and nasty theme, I guess, is a much prettier, nicer board. This board here is a little bit harder to read, although it has that whole looking at the cities and Where's Waldo aspect to it. So a couple things you'll notice here. One, it's a little easier to tell the different sections here. On the other one, they're kind of in straight lines in Raiders of the North Sea, which is over here. In Raiders of Scythia, they're very much clearly delineated, and that matters because some of the people are better at different areas. Some of the folks in Raiders of the North Sea would say something in monasteries. You're like, oh, here's a monastery, here's a monastery. Here it's a little easier. They'll say, in Assyria. Well, this is Assyria right here. That's not a huge difference. You'll also notice that the two tracks here of the military and up here, those are not in Raiders of Scythia. There's no tracks other than the victory point. And Raiders of Scythia also shows you what's on the dice here at the bottom board, so that's nice. But let's take a closer look at the town itself, or the village. So here we see some things that are the same. So the silversmith is pretty much exactly the same. Get 3 coins or 2 coins. It shows you that on both of them. The barracks here is the same on one hand, but there's 2 options for it in Raiders of Scythia. The town center, or the town hall here, the town center here will also give you special ability that your leader has, and I think that's kind of a big difference here. And in fact, what you'll notice here is that there are usually more options on this one. The difference is the armory here, because there is no armory in Raiders of Scythia. There are other ways to increase your special abilities, and then you have the way to get the birds and the horses here, the stables, which are not in the other game. So let's count the spaces here. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 plus 2 that you can't get to right away. On this board here, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 plus 2 you can't get to right away. So they're very similar in that regard. You're going to feel the same things, but at the end of each game, you're going to realize that there are some differences on how the towns are laid out. When we look at the cards themselves, you can see there's definitely a different style artwork here, and I think one's going to appeal to people more than the others. I think the symbology was a little cleaner in the original ones. Artwork's a personal preference. I tend to like the artwork on Raiders of the North Sea a little bit better, but I don't know. Now, card quality, the new ones are a much better card quality than the original ones. They have a linen finish to them, so definitely card quality, Raiders of Scythia looks better. Also, and this is something that might make a big difference gameplay-wise, I put out a bunch here that have, from Raiders of the North Sea, they have negative effects on opponents. Here, force all opponents to lose a silver. Swap an opponent's worker with one from your village. Now, not all the different crewmen from Raiders of the North Sea are like that. In fact, there's more that are not take that to your opponent, but there are a lot of them, while you really don't see almost any of that in Raiders of Scythia. Also, there's a lot of characters in Raiders of the North Sea which are heroes. Heroes don't really have a special ability, except you can't have more than one hero. They're like just uber special, and that's okay. but again, there's no real heroes here. And in fact, I forgot about heroes until I started doing this comparison. And so I think that's one thing that they got rid of that's not that big of a deal. Component-wise, this is kind of a mixed bag. It's a little, so I got metal coins for both of them. The Raiders of Scythia has these are kind of neat here, but they do roll around a bit. You can see here the Raiders of North Sea. They have these different shapes. Here, these are pretty much functionally identical, these components. The new ones are all hexagons, and that's because when you pull them from a bag and put them out randomly at the beginning of the game, this way you don't know which one's which. But that doesn't really matter. It's not like you're going to try to set the game up poorly. And so with these, I actually like these better than the new hexagons. Not to mention the symbology, I think, is better in Raiders of the North Sea. These look fantastic, and I'd rather have these maybe than these bags. I just think these roll around a little bit too much. Not to mention the difference between these. I kind of wish they had used a different color. But, I'm really splitting hairs in this point. The components for both games are fine. And in fact, I found it interesting that they essentially use very similar. We have the meeples from the original game, Raiders of the North Sea, which are white, black, and gray. And then in the new set, they're blue, gray, and red. Again, not a big difference here between them. I decided it was interesting that they use different colors. Now, the dice are a big change. The original one just had you rolling 1 or 2 dice to add to your strength. The Raiders of Scythia has, first of all, really good quality dice. And you roll extra dice with a gold as opposed to just having someone on your ship die. So earlier this meant somebody was going to die and you send them Valhalla, which could be good, but you still lost a person. Now in Raiders of Scythia, there are wounds that you will get based on dice that are rolled. And like I said, this dice have different sides, which are mentioned on the side of the boards. The original one had markers. Raiders of the North Sea had markers for tracks that you'll keep track of your armor and or your strength. And the new one has a much higher emphasis on the dice, although both of them have dice rolling. Raiders of Scythia has these boards to put all your people on your crew in. These were not in the original Raiders of the North Sea game. They were added in an expansion. Just that's a small thing. But there are now horses and eagles involved. So when you have a crewman, there's spots that you can add a eagle or add a horse. The eagles are pretty neat because the eagles will do one of two things. They will double your strength. So if I have a cool person with a cool amount of strength out there, the eagle can double that. There are also eagles that will double your special ability, or actually they give you a special ability that you'll be able to use in town. So that's kind of a neat aspect that the eagles add. There's also eagles that just add a strength and a victory point. Horses are more about strength and victory points at the end of the game. There are horses with 3 strength. You put them on somebody, and that makes it easier to go out. They also look cool, and there's just different horses that you'll be able to use. Now, all of this ties into that you have a starting leader in Raiders of Scythia. This is a huge difference. And for example, they each have a special ability to use in town. So this guy can just get an eagle, and he can get them faster than other people. She can take 2 town center actions. This guy gets a silver, a kumis. That's the drinks here, which help heal wounds, which again is like an aspect not found in Raiders of the North Sea. And spend 2 silver to get a horse. You get horses before everybody else. Complete a quest, get a kumi, remove up to 3 wounds from your crew, or gain 3 silver. These are really neat because they give you asymmetrical powers at the beginning of the game. This is something that is a clearly, in my opinion, better thing than Raiders of the North Sea, and one of the stronger points to this game. I'm assuming the majority of people who watch this video have either owned or played Raiders of the North Sea, and you're deciding whether to get this one as a companion piece or to replace it. I can think it's fairly definitive to say that I don't see, unless you love this game, that you need to own both. They're very, very similar. And in fact, Raiders of Scythia feels like almost a 1.5 version of Raiders of the North Sea. Now, the one I prefer more is Raiders of the North Sea with both of its expansions. If I'm just going by the base game alone, then Raiders of Scythia. Because Raiders of Scythia took some of the things from the expansions to Raiders of the North Sea, like wounds and things like that, and added them directly to this game. Theme-wise and look-wise, I tend to like Raiders of the North Sea better. Not that I'm a huge Viking fan. I don't know if this is kind of a cool theme too, but I definitely like this artwork better. Component-wise, I think it's a wash. Better cards in here. Some nicer looking components, but I think the iconography is easier to understand in Raiders of the North Sea. They both play in about the same time. I don't think there's any substantial changes. There's definitely a bump up because this one has the asymmetrical powers in it, and it has less of a take that, and I like that better than Raiders of the North Sea. If you brought these to me and said, which one do you want to play, it would be a tough choice for me. I like them both. And it doesn't really matter to me. They both have the place a worker out, take that action, pull a worker off the board, take that action. Really simple. Go out and raid, get these things, finish offerings. This one expounded upon it in two really well done expansions that I would almost always prefer to play with. This one doesn't have any expansions yet, but doesn't feel like it's missing them because it feels like it took some of the better ideas from the expansions of this one and brought them on board. So I know for the completionists out there, you'll probably need to own them both, but I think for most people you don't. If you already own Raiders of the North Sea, I don't know that you necessarily need to get this game unless you're feeling somewhat dissatisfied with this one. If you have this one with the expansions, then you definitely don't need to get this one. There will be a few things that will be like, ooh, there's horses, there's eagles, there's asymmetrical powers, but if you have the expansion for this one, you also have beer, so there's very similar. I would say this feels like version 1 and this is 1.5. I don't think they're different enough to make that big of a deal about. But hopefully this video will help you make the decision on that. Raiders of the North Sea and Raiders of Scythia. Either way, I look forward to seeing what comes out forward next because these are both really fun games. I'm Tom Vasel. We'll see you next time.